You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ MV Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are The Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
That's right, my brother.
Dr. Boyce Watkins.
What's up, Dr. Boyce?
Welcome back.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. I love all you guys. I mean, you guys are amazing. I love what you're doing with this show. A hell of a business model.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Now, I see you weren't too happy about who they have speaking at Muhammad Ali's funeral.
Yeah. I feel like they've taken Muhammad Ali, a strong black man, and turned him into a feminine little white boy.
Mm.
You know, they've really broken him down. They have emasculated my greatest hero. Now, I take this personal because I'm from Louisville, like Ali. He's a second cousin of mine, actually, by marriage.
Oh, really?
So you know Cassius Clay.
I know. Yeah, I know. I know a lot about the Clay family. The stories that you hear when he's not the celebrity, he's just the guy that was down the block. You know, my grandmother went to high school with him. Mm-hmm. You know, he was my greatest hero of all time. So. If you really think about it, you know, America didn't seem to love Ali until he couldn't speak anymore. If he had kept speaking, they wouldn't have loved him. Same thing with Dr. King. If he had kept speaking, they wouldn't have loved him.
Now, I thought he wrote this book because I was reading about that and documented exactly how he wanted his funeral to go.
Yeah, you know, I can't speak on that part. I mean, if it's his wishes, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But I think that the people that love him also have some equity in terms of saying, you know, this is what Ali means to us. And so, for example, anybody who supports anything that I do, if I did something that came off as a little bit off kilter, I would be okay with people critiquing that. You know, if I said I want Bill O'Reilly to speak at my funeral, then I would be okay if people said, you know what, we're not going to go to that thing. We're going to go to a real celebration of
But
this
was
man's
he
life.
good friends with Bill Clinton in real life?
I'm sure he was. I mean, you know, he was a celebrity. He's friends with everybody. Everybody loved him.
Friends is a strong word.
Because they
though.
said that was like a good. I mean, I didn't know that, but it said that they were great
I would
friends.
think Minister
That's why he's giving the eulogy.
Farrakhan,
There you go.
Harry Belafonte.
Who do you think
Jim Brown.
Jim Brown.
Jim Brown.
Yes.
See, that's the thing. Like, you got to mix it up. You know, what did you have? You had Bill Clinton and Billy Crystal and Bryant Gumbel. Okay,
Bryant Gumbel.
Right. I mean, you know, but to be serious, Bryant Gumbel is not. You know, he's actually a pretty strong guy. But that's not what you expected at an Ali funeral. You expect those guys that were sitting next to him in the 60s when he was really
Kareem
fighting.
Abdul-Jabbar, Jim Brown. Yes.
There you go. Exactly.
So do we know everybody that's speaking? Because I read that they were going to be mixing it up and have people representing all different faiths.
Yeah, they were going to add in a brother that I respect out of Louisville by the name of Pastor Kevin Cosby, who actually bought an HBCU in Kentucky and revitalized it. Yeah, became the 107th HBCU in the country, Simmons College. So he's going to be one of the speakers. But I just kind of feel like, you know, there could be something. Ali was a man of the people. So there should be a celebration for the people. This is not that celebration. Also,
it's open to the public, though.
Yeah, but I would be concerned about Bill Clinton overly politicizing this.
Yeah.
Since his wife's trying to get the black vote right now.
Yeah.
And Bill Clinton is also dealing with accountability for the numbers of black men that he incarcerated back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. So I'm not a fan of it, but, you know, hey, you're right. If Ali wanted it, we got to respect it. But we don't have to necessarily go along with it all.
Did you meet Muhammad Ali as a kid?
Never met him.
Wow.
I just grew up reading all his books. Mm-hmm. My dad would come home with stuff, you know, because again, we knew like people from the family, and I would read his books when I would go through adversity. I would read about what he went through, and I'd say, okay, if he could go through this, then I can make it through what I'm dealing with. You know?
I personally think we've done a terrible job of preserving history because I'm shocked at the amount of kids who don't know the legacy of Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I don't think that's an accident. I mean, I think the kids that need to know about Ali need to be told about Ali from their parents, not from the school system. The school system pretty much consistently proves to us that it's inadequate. You know, especially black and brown kids. It destroys more of those children than it actually strengthens and builds up. So we have to start looking at the truth, looking at the message, and realizing that educating our kids is our job, not somebody else.
What did you think about Piers Morgan's remarks about Muhammad Ali?
You know,
Muhammad Ali said just as inflammatory things about white people as Donald Trump has said about Muslims.
I mean, Piers Morgan is just, you know, he's a tacky white guy.
He's a troll.
You know, he's just, I mean, you know, he's going to say that. And a lot of people said that. I mean, Piers Morgan is really being honest. I mean, back when Ali was really Ali, the Ali that we knew, the one that made him great, most of these folks that praise him today did not like him back then, would not have liked him back then. Mm-hmm. You know, if you love this man so much, why were you trying to put him in prison? Why'd you destroy him at the peak of his career? Take all his money, ruin his life. You know, so I'm kind of curious about this idea that somehow he's been morphed into this American hero. But again, I think it's correlated with the fact that he became this lovable, cuddly character when he couldn't speak anymore.
I remember I watched a documentary about Joe Frazier, and the issues that he had with Muhammad Ali as well, and how his kids were like ridiculed in school because of the things that Muhammad Ali said about Joe Frazier and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, Ali was a smart man and a great man, but not everything he said really had this kind of wisdom and reflection you would hope. But again, he was young.
Right.
I think that sometimes the way he kind of clowned Joe Frazier wasn't always fair. And it's funny, it kind of makes me think about other people that, kind of talk about how celebrities, people forget celebrities have children, they have to go through stuff when you're making fun of them in public. So I didn't like the way Ali dealt with Joe Frazier, but at the same time, you're young, you're going to make mistakes.
Right.
You've been speaking about our people needing therapy a lot. Like how many of our people do you think actually deal with mental health issues?
Probably 90%.
Damn.
90%?
Including myself. You see, racism makes you crazy. It really does. It's like this boogeyman in the room that everybody tells you is not there, but it's there and it's affecting your life, and you don't always know how to deal with it. I mean, I've known people, for example, when I talk about, being on the corporate plantation, working that job that you hate, dealing with racism on the job, I've known people who had to actually go get like mental health treatment, were on medication. I knew a brother one time who said that his job stressed him out so bad that it literally zapped the testosterone out of his body. Wow. He couldn't have sex with his wife. He said, I would sleep all day. I was depressed, and he said getting fired was the best thing that ever happened to him. So I think that that mental health is a serious problem. I think that we need to stop putting a stigma on it.
And people are really embarrassed and ashamed to speak out about it too.
Right, exactly. I mean, but I'm the first to admit that racism made me crazy. It made me paranoid. There's certain people that I don't want to deal with because I can't really tolerate this idea that you're going to treat me as less than a human being, because of the color of my skin. So when I run into that, it really bothers me. It sets off triggers that come from being a black boy growing up in Kentucky.
Now, you know what I wanted to ask you about this Roots remake. There was a lot of controversy over that. You saw the History Channel. Some people were saying, don't watch this movie. Snoop Dogg was very vocal about it. Right. But then obviously, I have a lot of friends that saw it. They said it was great. I watched a little bit of it. I haven't watched the whole series yet. Do you think that Roots remake was a great idea? Do you think people should boycott it, or would you encourage people to watch it?
I think knowing that part of history is important. I don't have a problem with the Roots remake per se, but I do have a problem with the fact that Hollywood seems very eager to greenlight slave movies.
Absolutely.
Right? That's the problem, right? So it's not so much a matter of that type of content shouldn't be available. You shouldn't say that, but it's like, where's the diversity, right? And so what I really believe is that what we need a black Hollywood. We need more black people, not just on the stage, but behind the cameras, things like that, financing movies so we can greenlight the stories we want to tell. Because actually, I'm working with your best buddy, Dame Dash. And
That's Envy's best buddy.
Oh, Envy's best buddy. Envy, you guys' best buddy.
Yeah.
And we actually, just wrapped on a couple of TV shows. One called Steel Justice about a black attorney named Marcus Steele. Claudia Jordan's in it, and a couple of Richard T. Jones, Richard Brooks, et cetera. Dame's actually in it too. And another, sitcom with Nicole Murphy and some other people, and Miguel Nunez. And so our goal really was to say, okay, we don't like the stories that are being told. Let's see if we can tell better stories.
I mean, that's what Nate Parker did. Nate Parker, $7 million he raised to shoot the Birth of a Nation in that Turner movie.
Yeah.
And look now, it's coming out.
Absolutely. I mean, it was a big move because I think the movie's going to be great. Nate Parker's a great actor. Also, Byron Allen was involved in that. He came up just basically by making this massive $20 million bid.
Byron Allen, everybody sleeps on Byron Allen. Byron Allen is the man.
You can't sleep on Byron Allen.
$100 million guy quietly.
Byron Allen will wake you up.
Yeah.
I mean, that brother, he's done some interviews where I've been like, wow, I didn't know he had it in him. I thought he was just a comedian.
Yeah.
But he's turned out to be, just prolific and powerful in terms of what he does. And I love the guy for it.
Now, last time you were up here, you were talking about FU money. People always email me, DM me about investments and how they can make more money. You're the financial guy when you come up here, and you usually help a lot of people. What can people be doing with their money, or how should they be saving?
Well, first of all, we live in a country where people don't save, and you have to save your money so your money can save you. The thing that we have to also understand about saving is that saving will not make you rich. Typically, saving will give you security.
Right.
So saving it prepares you for the next step, which is investing, which actually grows your money. So it's almost like saving is cocking the gun, and investing is squeezing the trigger.
Right.
So ultimately, what I say to people is, that you shouldn't believe that saving is not something that you can do. We tend to find a way to afford the things that matter to us, right? Like I'll hear people say, I can't afford it when it comes to either saving or maybe buying education or paying for a book. But then you rarely hear people say, I can't afford it when it comes to buying, some expensive sneakers or going to a movie, right? Or going to the club or whatever it is, right? So we tend to pay for the things we want and beg for the things we need, right? And so what I say to people is that your savings should not be at the bottom of your budget. It should be at the top. You don't spend first, save what's left. You save first and spend what's left. Then at that point, you let it grow slowly. Then you start investing. At the blackbusinessschool.com, which is where I teach, we have about 20,000 students actually now. And the first thing we do is we teach them how to buy your first share of stock. And I show them that, that the invest in the stock market is not just for rich people. It's not just for white people. Anybody can do it. It's like buying a pair of shoes. And so within 10 minutes, we show them, and it demystifies the process. And then we do the math. And I explain, for example, that if you, let's say you have a newborn baby and you buy $100 worth of stock for your newborn baby every year up until they're 30, 40 years old, then by the time that child is 30, they'll have at least like $250,000, even if you just randomly pick stocks. The studies show this. And then by the time they're 40, they'll be close to being a millionaire.
The problem is a lot of times, and I don't tell people because I hate messing with people's money. People don't know what to do. They're not educated in what stocks to buy.
It's a lack of information.
So they always ask, what stock should I buy? And I never want to tell somebody. So
because if it doesn't work out, they're going to be looking at you.
I always tell people I invest in stocks that I use or that I see my kids using. But people always want to know, what stock should I go at? Where should I invest my money? What would you tell people?
Well, I'm with you on that. You see, the thing is that, when I was working on my doctorate, one of the things that we studied deeply was the fact that that what stock you pick is not always an important thing because it's very hard to predict the stock market. Although people make money saying they can predict it, some people think, a lot of experts think it's almost like voodoo. It's like a voodoo, almost like a superstition kind of thing. For example, if you take the top 10 mutual fund money managers of one year and you look at their performance the next year, most of those people are not in the top 10 the next year. So another example, they did a study where they had monkeys throw darts at a wall. They put the names of companies on the wall, and so if it landed on Nike, you bought shares of Nike. If it landed on IBM, you bought shares of IBM. So they compared the performance of this group of stocks picked by the monkeys, and they compared it to the best experts on Wall Street. And you know what happened? The monkeys won. The monkeys won. The monkeys won half the time, like a coin toss.
Because the monkey's not overthinking it.
Right, exactly.
Well,
humans overthink
it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated. And now, if you want to make it complicated, you can. But the thing is, I keep it simple in the beginning so that people will just jump in.
Do you recommend that people get a stockbroker or try to do that or do it on their own?
I don't think you need that. I would get, maybe some investment advice, which you can get online for very cheaply, to just kind of know how to invest based on your age. Older people have to invest a little differently from younger people. But, generally speaking, when I'm picking stocks, I just try to diversify. That's the idea. Spread your money out.
Right.
And don't just spread it out amongst
your bonds.
Yeah. So don't just spread it out amongst stocks and bonds, but also you go into real estate, small businesses. In fact, some of the best investment opportunities I've seen have actually been businesses in the hood, because the black community especially is severely undercapitalized. So you got a lot of people with great ideas who need $2,000 or $3,000 to get off the ground. You turn that $2,000 or $3,000 into a lot of money.
Yeah, get a black business, just put Chinese workers there.
Hey.
What?
That's it. Just put the Chinese workers there. Because black people don't like to support their own.
That is definitely not true. I support black businesses
my father
all the time.
I do too, but my father used to always tell me, if you open up a business, don't put your name on it. Because black people will hate on it just because.
That's true.
That's a fact.
You know what? You got
true. That's true. A lot of times. Not every time, but a lot of times.
You got people that think that way, and we're working real hard to try to change that.
I know a lot of things I do. I purposely try to make sure I hire black people. Like I got my closets done in my house. I hired a black company. That I found on Facebook and saw their work they did. Even for us opening the juice bar that we're opening in Brooklyn and Bed-Stuy, we're going to make sure everybody knows that we're behind it, because I feel like people will come out and support it. Even all the places that I go out to eat in Brooklyn, they're all black owned.
Well, you know what?
I make a conscious effort to do that.
Yeah, and I think that can change. I think it is changing. I think with every year, see, the internet is a big game changer in a lot of things. The sharing of ideas, in economic activity, et cetera. Because what you're seeing is that with each passing year, people gain that awareness and understanding. And the awareness is the first step toward changing your behavior, right? So ultimately, what I'm seeing is there are a lot of folks that are looking to buy black, and it's also important to make sure people understand the importance of that, because your money's your power, and you can't give all your power away. Other ethnic groups understand this. They understand what you might call economic protectionism. They know that we have to spend our money with each other as a way to protect ourselves from mistreatment from other people. Asians do it, the Jewish community. Their ownership of things is their way to protect themselves from the next Holocaust. And so if you look at black people in America, we've had pretty much at least 4 Holocausts in this country: slavery, Jim Crow, mass incarceration. Then you can go back even to the Middle Passage. Well, the next Holocaust is on its way. It's going to happen. So my idea is that we have to think about ownership, building, creating, protecting each other, supporting black business. And not everybody's on board. Not every slave wants to run away from the plantation.
That's true.
Right? And not everybody's meant to be a soldier in this game, but I think it just takes a few good people to kind of make it happen. In fact, one of the things I talk about as far as kids, for example, is that, remember, we're in an intergenerational game. Wealth is built across generations. It doesn't happen in 5 or 10 years, right? So what I tell people is that, look, if we could train, say, 50 to 100,000 black children on the basics of financial literacy, entrepreneurship, wealth creation, knowing they don't have to work for somebody in order to get rich, things like that, then what will happen is that 50,000 will employ the next 50 million. Right. Because the black unemployment problem is not going to be solved by getting more white people to give us jobs, for example.
Right.
It's going to be solved by building more businesses in our communities, because all studies show that people tend to hire people that look like them. That's just a fundamental fact.
Well, how do you stop black people from believing the white man's ice is cold?
We just teach. You teach self-love. Because if I don't love myself, then I'm not going to love you, because you remind me of something that I already hate. Yeah, right?
and the product has to be quality too. That's the other thing.
Yeah,
like you can't just buy black just because the person is black. Like it has to be up to par.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the silliest things anybody could say is, I don't support black businesses because they do this, this, and this. But there are thousands and thousands of businesses out there, right? So if you don't like one black business, go find another one to support. Right. Don't you can't write off a whole group of people because of what one company did.
And I think it's important for us when we go to these businesses and we get treated great and they have great products to post about it, let people know about it, and encourage people to go there also. Absolutely.
Both ways, right? Positive reinforcement is very important. You have a relative, for example, that starts a business. Don't ask them for the hookup. Don't
Right.
discourage them. You encourage them, you help them get access to resources, you buy from them, you support them, you make investments, you do what you can to make sure they succeed, because I believe that every black family should have a family business. I really believe that. But on the other tip, in terms of criticism, right, because all of us have gone into a black business that disappointed us. Right. I believe that all that criticism should be constructive. Like, I want to help you. I may not come back, but right. I want to help make your business better. And here's some things you could do better. Because remember, many of us are first generation entrepreneurs. Even myself. I didn't grow up in a family where people were taught to start businesses. I was
figuring it out.
Yeah, I was told you go to school, get a good job, and that's it. And then as I got older, I realized that was a dead end path. So I had to figure out other ways to make it work, especially as a black man. Black men have an especially difficult task, because the world is designed to destroy you. Your extermination, physically, spiritually, economically, has always been part of the national agenda. So, one of the reasons I respect, guys like you guys, for example, in terms of using your voice in the way that you do, is because, men have to find creative ways to be able to be men in the society that wants to keep them as a little boy. And the fact of the matter is that when you're only told that your only way to feed your family is to work for somebody outside of your community, then you're putting yourself in a situation where you're vulnerable to disrespect, And so, for example, for black men, I say, look, if you want to be a king, you got to learn how to build a castle, because nobody's going to invite you into their castle and make you the king. They'll make you the servant or whatever. So it's very important.
How do we you talk about the new Black Wall Street. Do you think we could ever create that again?
Yes. In fact, I believe that it's already being created. We're actually showing a film this week in New York called Resurrecting Black Wall Street, The Blueprint, by Dorian Chandler, a great film director out of the Bronx. And basically in this film, what we do is we study the Black Wall Street Massacre in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921. And then we resurrect those ideas and say, what led to these people creating one of the most prosperous communities at that time? They had hundreds and hundreds of businesses. They were doing better than the communities around them. And what I found is that when people talk about building a Black Wall Street, they're usually thinking about something big and massive, something that costs billions of dollars. And that's kind of daunting, kind of overwhelming. I know I don't have billions of dollars. But the thing is, you can have Black Wall Streets that are built on technology. For example, we're not broken down into geographic regions anymore. It's more so demographic regions. So if you're in China and you believe in what I believe, we can do business together even though you're across the world. The other thing is that a Black Wall Street can be something small. All it is it's a scenario where people are creating cooperative economic situations where there's prosperity. So in this room, we could have a Black Wall Street. If I'm buying from you and I'm investing in you and you're buying from him and we're supporting each other, we have each other's back, or I'll loan you money. I don't need to see your credit score because I know you. You know what I mean? Things like that. That's a Black Wall Street. So you can actually have a Black Wall Street in your own family.
And I always tell my friends, too, team up with other people. You don't have to try to figure out a way to do everything on your own. If you know somebody else who has some skills, or you have the skills and they have the finances, and you can figure out how you can all come together and start a business, you should do that. A lot of people don't like to ask other people for help, or they feel like someone's going to steal their idea, or they don't want to give anything to anybody else. But sometimes it's worth it to do that so you can make it happen.
Absolutely. In the Black Business School, that's what we call economic fortification. It's a concept I came up with because it was part of my journey when I had to learn how to be an entrepreneur. Because before that, I was a business school professor, but most business school professors have never run a business. That's what makes college kind of, in some cases, it can actually become a ripoff with the student loan debt situation and all that. And so when I jumped out there, it was tough because I was doing everything by myself, and I thought that was the way it's supposed to be done. But when the time when I felt secure, when I no longer would have these nightmares about having to go back and beg for my job, was when I realized I had people around me that had my back. When we did business with each other, we shared, customer bases, we shared expertise and information, we shared capital. If I'm struggling, I can go borrow money from you. So if you're trying to leave the plantation and get out there and be free, find other people to roll with. They may not even be your own relatives. They may be people you meet online or whatever. Because that community is what gives you the strength. So, in fact, if you think about it, think about leaving. If you're a slave and you run away from the plantation, and you go by yourself, you're in the woods by yourself. You don't know which way to go. You don't know how to get what your food, your clothing, your shelter. But imagine if you could go to a village where everybody had different skills. You had security. You had help
you get on your feet.
Exactly, and that's what it is. It's about creating a village. If you have that scenario in your life, then you can be successful.
Let's go back to Black Wall Street for a second. When I first heard that story, when I was a kid, I didn't believe it because I didn't believe somebody could do such a heinous act where you have this whole community doing for self and then they got bombed.
Well, explain to people what Black Wall Street is. I know I always say explain, but people might not know what Black Wall Street is.
Well, Black Wall Street was the Greenwood section of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Around 1921, you had a black community that was really prosperous.
Banks, hospitals.
Yeah, there were 6 brothers that owned airplanes, like in 1921, right? Some of the best doctors in the world, et cetera. And effectively, basically, the white community around them got jealous, got a little pissed off, and went in there and they were killing as many black men as they could get their hands on, incarcerating the rest, ran everybody else out of town, and systematically went house to house, looted their houses, and burned them down. And then they covered
the tree was dropping gas canisters from the sky from planes too? Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, the American military actually bombed some of these houses because the way they sort of presented the story in the media was these Negroes are getting out of line and these brave white men are going to stop the chaos. And it was a story that was buried for 100 years. I was in that area, and there were kids there that didn't even know what happened right there on that same spot. Wow. And so I said, this is a story that every black child in America needs to hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the thing is that what bothers me about the story is not just what happened, it's the fact that that's the one we know about. It's like when a brother gets out of prison after 30 years for something he didn't do. I don't just think about the guy that got out.
Hundreds of other
He's the lucky one, right?
People.
I'm thinking about the thousands who couldn't get the attention of the Innocence
There was
Project.
a town in North Carolina. I can't remember what part of North Carolina that was.
Wilmington, I believe.
Yeah, and it was the same thing. It was Wilmington, right? Yeah, it was structured the same way. It was like a Black Wall Street.
Yeah. These stories happen consistently. And so when people have this conversation about reparations, it's kind of a no-brainer conversation. You steal somebody's stuff, you're supposed to give it back. There were multimillionaires in this community who died broke, whose families are broke.
So what stops people from doing the Black Wall Street now? I know you talked about the film, but with so many African Americans that have a lot of finances, what stops it now?
It's not so much about having wealthy black people. We got plenty of those. It's about having wealthy black people who actually care about the black community. And that's our problem. For example, this week I was in Vegas. That was the last place we spoke. We did our tour before we came here. And I couldn't help but talk about Floyd Mayweather. And I said, man, with all due respect to this brother, I said, what if this brother just gave 10% of his income? He could still ball and go to stripper clubs and all that. Just 10% towards something that was building in the community. Don't brag to me about buying a $5 million European car. Brag to me about building a $5 million school where you're going to educate thousands and thousands of people, create thousands of jobs.
Now, to play devil's advocate, a lot of these celebrities do that just don't sound good in a rap, or that just don't sound good in an interview. Like a lot of these guys are putting money back into the community. Like, I mean, Diddy's opening up a charter school.
Yes.
But we'd rather hear about the Bad Boy reunion tour than that. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the charitable stuff they do for the community, they just don't talk about because it's just not, I guess, cool.
That's absolutely fundamentally true. And I would say that if that's the case, with, say, Mayweather, and I'm not just picking on him.
Right.
But if that's the case, then I think he should make sure people know about this.
Right.
I mean, you can just advertise what you've been doing, let people know. But that's not the evidence I've seen. I mean, I've just seen so many resources wasted. And really, I don't think the celebrities are going to do it anyway. I really think that what we want to build, are crops of young people who take pride in building things, creating, systematic structures that support other people. So, for example, if I become an engineer and I go to college and I get a good job and I'm working in the suburbs, that's really good for me and my family. And I can say, Mom, I made it. Look at me. Look at my car. All this other stuff. Right. But if I have a certain mindset that's built on cooperative economic thinking, what I'm going to do is say, okay, now I want to institutionalize my greatness. Because if it's all about me and my job, then everything I've accomplished dies when I die. When I die, the company's going to replace me, pretend like I was never there, and that's it. But if I go and I structure something, I know how to build a business, right? Then I can go back to my hood, create a scenario that's employing 20, 30, 40 people. And then when I'm gone, everything I've done still lives on after I'm gone. So really, being part of a community is your key to immortality.
Now, what's a black bank? What would you consider a black bank? Because if you go to Chinatown, I would see a Chinese bank. If I go to, let's say, in any of these in these areas, you see their own people with their own banks. But I don't necessarily see a black bank. I mean, an African American owned bank that will give loans and things like that.
Well, you know what? There are databases of black-owned banks. We're actually trying to pull some stuff together because we want to encourage people to put their money in black-owned banks. I can't recommend any particular one per se, but
because
they
I'm
do.
saying if I want to put my money in a black-owned bank, I just don't see them to do them. And when I was in Queens, I never seen a black-owned bank. When I live in Jersey, I don't see a black-owned bank.
Maybe you just don't trust these Negroes.
I also think part of it is that you want to go with the chain so that you're not paying fees when you go to the ATM. So we try to pick banks that, okay, there's a lot of them all over the place. So I know when I go to the bank and I take money out, I don't have to pay $5 worth of fees.
Because people think black-owned bank is TD Banks because they open on Sunday. Like, that's a black-owned bank because it's in the hood. You see Bank of America is
We would just have to rebuild trust in each other in order to do that. Because I'm going to be honest with you, this is me talking. I don't know if I trust my money in a black-owned bank.
Well, it is okay to feel that way, but what I'll say is that, trust is an important part of any relationship. Right. Like a relationship that doesn't have trust isn't going to work, whether you're talking about romantic or economic. In fact, when the economy breaks down, it usually breaks down because there's not trust. For example, banks that think the economy is going bad, they don't trust consumers, so they don't loan money. Consumers that don't trust their economic future is going to be good, they don't go buy things. Corporations that don't trust the consumer to support them, they won't make investments. They won't hire anybody. So that breaks down an economy. So it's the same thing that breaks down a relationship. If I don't trust that you're going to love me back, then why would I love you? I'm going to sit there and just, protect myself, right?
Yeah, and it's not even about, thinking that they're going to steal. It's just that we talk so much. You know what I'm saying? He put $1 million in, baby. He got $10 million in
Well,
his
first of all,
bank
there's a
account.
lot of black people that work in any bank that could talk if
And
you
you
look
know
like
how
that.
I feel when I be at the register and I see them too. As soon as they say my name, if they say my radio name, all right.
Every time I go to the
to the
bank,
bank.
they always ask about y'all. I go to PNC in Jersey City. They be like, how's Charlamagne? How's Envy? How's everybody? But I don't mind that. I actually like the familiarity of them knowing who I am, so I can call them and say, hey, can y'all do me a favor? I can't come in today. It works for me.
You say that until you go broke, and then they telling everybody that you ain't got number $10 in your bank account.
I'm not going broke.
Well, remember though, there's a we want to, I think, we'll avoid like any kind of generalization, right?
Yeah.
Like this is what all of us do, because we know that's not
true.
We know black people, we all across the spectrum, and I would say that to maybe get started, just open an account at a black bank and give it a try. Put some of your money in there. A little percentage of your billions, you know what I mean? And then as you grow your trust, put your money in there. Because here's the thing, when you support a black business, I personally believe in the idea of not just supporting the banks, but everything, because, if you pay, let's say you pay a little more, like 10% extra or whatever for a black product, remember the money is recycling in your community. Right. That money's going to feed a black child. And then that black person's going to, hopefully spend with another black person. You give your money to a major corporation, that money's disappearing. Right. Black folks are the only ones really who are trained or brainwashed to give all our money to people who don't care about us. Because we're seeking our self-esteem. There's just kind of this this hopelessness, or I don't know what it is exactly, but we have something where we are just wired to just give our money away. Partly, I think, because we don't know the power of protecting your money.
Now, you posted on Facebook that if we could eradicate the culture, just switching topics, that if we could eradicate the culture of binge drinking, sexual assaults would drop overnight.
Absolutely.
Explain
Absolutely.
a little bit.
I spent 13 years teaching at Syracuse University, where it seemed like we produced as many alcoholics as we produced college graduates. And and in fact, it offends me that there are so many black men in prison for weed possession and stuff like that. When I never saw them raid a college campus on a Friday night, because if you did that, you find all kinds of
underage drinking.
Exactly, all kinds of chaos. And so back when I was there, I remember I've had a lot of alcoholics in my family, and I remember what Malcolm X said, where he said this is how he said the white man will sell you the liquor bottle and then lock you up for being drunk. And so I saw what liquor did to a lot of the members of my family, and I just stayed away from it. And I remember speaking up about it, and I remember getting a lot of backlash on that. But I personally think that a lot of these sexual assaults that occur, there's liquor in the background somewhere. It causes people to make decisions they normally wouldn't make. It doesn't mean it would eliminate all sexual assaults. I mean, rapists are going to be rapists, if that's what they want to do. But at the same time, when I talk to my girls, we do have conversations about being cautious, when it comes to alcohol.
That's very true, because some of the things that I've always done is if I'm out and I'm not around people that I trust, or I'm not in a familiar environment, I don't get drunk, period. The only time I feel like, okay, I can overdo it is if I'm with a bunch of my friends and we're all looking out for each other and we all leave together.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Those are the precautions that we always take. I would never be in an unfamiliar environment with people I don't know like that. My friend had a blind date the other day. I told her, I said, whatever you do, only have 2 drinks the entire night. Don't do any shots. I was like, just be really careful and make sure you leave by yourself.
Sounds like you have common sense, which which is really not popular now. I mean, people want to think you can just do whatever you want and not have things happen to you. And I just tell my girls, like, look, I mean, I would love to go out and tell every rapist to not rape anymore, right? But it ain't gonna work. Right. So I just tell them you got to protect yourself. Just
be very cautious. Don't leave your drink unattended. Don't let somebody go get you a drink from the bar and hand it to you.
And you ain't got to drink to have a good time. People got to realize that.
Right,
too.
you don't. But if you choose to,
exactly.
if somebody wants to buy you a drink, you go to the bar with them, order your drink, take your drink straight from whoever made the drink, and not let somebody bring it to you that you don't know.
A lot of people like to say, "Oh, you're victim blaming when you put all the onus on the girl not to get drunk. A guy just shouldn't rape her."
Yeah, and I'm not a fan of that. I raise my girls to have accountability. It doesn't mean that the world, the other people don't have to be accountable.
Right.
But I can't
Everybody's
control them.
accountable.
Right.
But you just lessen the risk by doing certain things and
Absolutely.
being careful yourself. That's all.
Yeah, it's about being smart.
Now, I wanted to ask you something else. This is a question that's been asked to me several times, and I don't really know the best way to answer something like this. But I've come across several different women who have said things, and I know there's so many people in this situation where they're single moms raising kids. They have a 9-to-5 job that they don't love, but they're doing it because they know they have responsibilities and they have passions that they want to follow in their life, but they're too frightened to leave their job because they have a family to support at home and follow their dreams where they don't know if it's going to work out or not. What type of advice would you give to a woman like that?
Well, the first thing I would say is that, you can have a fear of things unknown and changing your life, but you should also fear living the same life over and over again until you grow old and die, and then regretting the fact that you never tried for anything different. Most older people will tell you that you're more likely to regret things that you didn't do than you are to regret things you did do. But then beyond that, this idea of cooperative support can be very important, right? So if you find other people that are doing something similar to you, you come together and you share the same dream, maybe educate yourself on what you think that next step should be. And if 4 of you are doing this together, or 5 of you are doing it together, it's not as scary. So in fact, I've seen scenarios where 5 people got together where all of them had full-time jobs, and 4 of them kept their job and 1 of them quit because that one person had the skill to actually start whatever business it was. The other 4 used their steady income from the job to be a funding source to build the business. You see, so ultimately, there are creative ways that you can actually do this. And I think for people of color, we have to be creative because studies show that banks don't loan us money the way they should. Studies also show white people don't like doing business with us the way they should. Government contracts don't come to us the way they should. We're kind of neglected in so many ways, so we have to find ways to support each other. So I think that might work. Work together as a group.
You know, I ask you too, just going back, talking about the slave movies. If a lot of us suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, which I think we do, especially these guys growing in the hood and watching people get killed, getting shot at, things like that. Do you think that things like slave movies just keep that going? Because it's a constant reminder that maybe we're just not adequate, a constant reminder that we're oppressed?
You know, I don't like slave movies made by people who are not black. It just seems like when white people make these movies, they just do it wrong. I think they try really hard to disconnect themselves from the villains. You know, like they'll always put the white protagonist in the movie that the white audience can identify with, and they all walk away saying, you know, yeah, I would have been that guy back in 1802, right? And so in a way, it kind of, and it also tends to promote this idea of black people being very passive and incapable of defining our own destiny. And I think that that's something that you know, I think people are afraid of black people when we're truly empowered. You know, like black men, when black men really are organized and truly focused and educated and all these other things, we become scary. We're like an army of really smart gorillas to them. You know, so I really think that there's an effort to kind of keep us passive and all these other things.
So let me keep beating you in the head with these images of you being oppressed and not show you images of empowerment, of images of you overcoming.
Mm-hmm. And also what I'm telling you as well is, you know, look at how bad things used to be and compare that to the way things are now.
But I also think it's important for kids to know their history too. At the same time, we talk about how history is taught.
That's not our only history,
There's a lot
though.
of kids.
Right.
That's not our only history.
I'm not saying that that's not all, but there's a lot of kids who never saw the original Roots, but maybe they'll watch the Roots remake, and that is a part of history.
I'm fine with that if they were showing us other things.
Right.
That's it.
I think
you got to show your child different things. Like my kids know the difference. They know this movie, they know that movie, they know their heroes. I try to give them that surrounding of everything, not just one particular type. You know, my kids are not going to watch 50 slave movies. They're going to watch a little bit. They're going to know about Muhammad Ali. They're going to know about Louis Farrakhan, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and they're going to know about slave movies. They're going to know their whole
about
history.
Jackie Robinson.
They're going to know Jackie Robinson. They're going to know everything, you know?
Yeah, it shouldn't be the same story repeatedly told by the same people. Right, that's not really going to work, you know. So, you know, if you talk about the '60s, notice that most of us know all about the civil rights movement, but you don't know about the black folks that said, "I'm gonna pick up a gun because you're not gonna do this to me," right? And so, but the truth of the matter is that there's no incentive, say, in the school system or in Hollywood, to really create imagery that's going to empower black people. Because, I mean, I think that there's a fear that when we really know the truth and we reflect on that, we're going to get mad, right? So those stories are stories that have to be told by us. And with the democratization of media, meaning the internet letting us talk to each other unfiltered. This is the first time in human history black people have been able to talk to each other without going through somebody else. These stories are being told, and people are getting mad. And I think it's a good thing.
And if it's not a fear, it goes back to what you were saying earlier. Like there's no black people in positions of power in Hollywood anyway, so white people are just going to make the stories that they can relate to. Right,
exactly. I mean, you know, Hollywood wasn't built by us or for us, right? And really, I think that we can learn a lesson from the people who built Hollywood. You know, the Jewish community has a lot of power in Hollywood, and they did that for their own strength and protection. They said, we're going to make sure our story gets told first, and we'll tell everybody else's story, too, if you let us. And I think black people can do the same thing. Right. So, but the thing is, we have to change our mentality when it comes to, you know, what we teach our kids to do with their lives. You know, are you teaching your child to just go out and get a job and engage in some form of economic servitude where you're building somebody else's dream, somebody else's vision, or do you applaud the idea of them building their own vision? It's harder to do the second thing because it's easier to attach to something that's already built, already established, already doing well, and it's much tougher to plant a seed for the future. But remember, it's like comparing a guy with a basket full of apples who's getting apples off other people's trees versus a guy who just planted an apple tree. He might be hungry for the moment, but he's literally fed the next 10 generations. So we have to applaud building in our community and not just borrowing and begging and aligning ourselves with other people.
Right. Did you see what happened with Brock Turner, the Stanford University student accused of rape?
Yeah, I saw that.
He got 6 months.
Yeah, that's good for him. I mean, it's what white guys get to do, huh? I mean, it's clearly, we know clearly that situation, you know, was a reflection of, you know, what happens in the judicial system, right? You know, I mean, there's nothing else really to say about it. I mean, it reminds me of the guy in Texas, a little kid who killed all those people. And they said he had affluenza or something like that. and it really reflects on yet another study I'm thinking about where they said actually that people feel, white people believe black people feel less pain. So they're less able to identify with black people's pain. So, for example, 30 people get killed in France, 40 people, whatever. it's a big deal. 200 or 300 people get killed in Kenya. It's like whatever. Or Southside Chicago, we have dozens of shootings every single week. You don't really see people doing much about that because they kind of just say, well, that's what those people are used to.
Wow, well, we appreciate you for joining us.
Always.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Always great conversation when you come through.
I'm glad to be
What's the sitcom, Just Love?
Yeah, it's called Just Love, and it's Jackie Harry's in it, Miguel Nunez. And
You acting now, Dr. Boyce?
you know what? I want to play a part in helping build the next Black Hollywood. I can't do it by myself, but we trying. And actually, Dame Dash and Kanye West have a movie coming out called Too Honorable that's coming out this summer. Dame and I are actually going to do a tour. I know Dame. I know he's not y'all's favorite person per se.
I got no problem with Dame.
Okay, right. But he got a problem with y'all. But you know what? He got a problem with y'all. I'm not gonna lie.
All three of us?
Yeah. Well, he doesn't mention you that much. But maybe because you're the prettiest. But yeah. I mean, but the thing is, like, you know, with myself, I don't take on other people's issues per se.
Right.
You know, I respect Dame. Dame has been an amazing business partner, very consistent, very loyal. And Charlemagne, I mean, one of the people I respect the most because, you know, I remember 10 years ago when I was on Wendy's show and how much respect you showed. And so I'll tell Dame, like, well, I know you may feel this way about Charlemagne, but I'm not taking on that because I've dealt with his brother directly. And I think that's how we have to deal with things. So
I didn't know he didn't like you.
Dame I didn't know he didn't like me either. Dame is always welcome.
I just think it's great
He's always
conversation. We don't have to agree with what he says, and sometimes I do. Sometimes he might not agree with me, but it's great conversation. And
I'm sure Dame is used to people not agreeing with things that
I
he
think
says.
it's great
though.
Well, you know, Dame Dash is Dame Dash. There's only one,
Absolutely.
right? And we know he's got a unique personality. And by the way, I'm actually in New York this week. People can go to the drboycewatkinstour.com and they can come out and check us out. We're going to be in Washington Heights at the Malcolm and Betty Shabazz Center. Then we're going to be in Brooklyn.
Okay.
So,
And you know the thing with Dame is just not a good conveyor of messages because you can come in here, Gary Vaynerchuk can come in here and say the same thing Dame was saying, but Dame just says it in a nigga way. And you can't tell people if you work for somebody else, that person is your daddy. Yeah, if you got a boss, that's your daddy.
Well, you know, sometimes I think Dame's message might need a little bit of a translation.
Fine-tuning.
That's it.
Right. A little fine tuning. Right. It's a little, you know, I mean, but it's like, you know,
The spirit is there.
Here's what we connect. We connect because we're almost exactly the same age. We're like a month apart. We both have, you know, I had a strong father who actually was a lot like Dame. Actually, I let those. They actually met when we were teaching our class. We actually teach a class together. It's at intelligentbossmoves.com, by the way. And basically, you know, I met him, let him meet my father through Skype because I said, you know, when my father was younger, he was a crazy like you, but he was very, very smart, very strong. He had a strong sense of family. And if you look at Dame, I mean, one of the most important things in the world to him is taking care of his kids and just being a man in this world. And I think young guys gravitate to that because you can't go through life as a black man and let people emasculate you. You can't do that. So that's where my respect lies. That's what we have in common. But I have that same respect for you guys as well. So
Tell Dusko Poppington he's always welcome.
I certainly will.
He'll see this. You're always welcome, Dame.
Yes, he is.
All right, it's the Breakfast Club. It's Dr. Boyce Watkins.
The Breakfast Club. Every weekday morning. Tune in